Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are gonna be doing my March wrap-up, and I had a really good reading month in March actually. I read seven books. I liked all of them actually. And I think I read my favorite book of 2025 so far. So, really good reading month. Also, I am so sorry if the lighting in this video is bad or weird. I'm trying to figure out my lighting for these videos because I would love to film with natural light, but my bookshelves are this way and my window is there. So with only natural light, it's kind of only hitting this side of my face. So I added a ring light to that side. I feel like you can see the glare in my glasses. So we'll see how this looks when I edit this video, but hopefully it's not too bad. But yeah, let's just go through all of the books that I read in March. We're gonna start with a few library books, so I don't have the physical copies with me, but I'll add a picture right here. The first book I read in March was actually also a Finnish book. It was Kunnes kuolen by Sini Helminen, and it is a Finnish verse book, which I am not the biggest fan of verse books, so I was a little bit nervous going into it, but I ended up really enjoying it. I gave it 4 stars, and if you guys want to hear a little bit about Kunnes kuolen, the title translates to When I Die. It is a verse novel about kind of the very popular Tumblr writing prompt. Hey! It is a verse novel of the very popular Tumblr writing prompt of what would the world be like if your date of death was tattooed onto your forehead. I have at least seen that writing prompt on Tumblr. Oh my god, can you stop fighting? Lala! Ash! So our book is set in far future Finland, where that situation is reality, and our main character Ani is an night moth, I think was the name, which basically means that she's going to, or they? I'm actually not sure. Let's just use they. They are going to die before they turn 18. So all their life, Ani has been treated different by other people around them because the date of their death. Some people think that it's not worth it to put time and effort into Ani's education, for example, because they're never going to be able to use it. And this book tells Ani's story until the date of their death. Like I said, I ended up actually really liking this book. There were many kind of very beautiful lines that I wish I could have annotated, but like I said, I was reading a library copy, so I did not do that. But it was actually really beautifully written. I was not fan of the ending. If you guys have read this book, let me know if you agree or not. I just wish they would have done the ending differently, because now it left me kind of rolling my eyes. But I understand why they did what they did, because this book is targeted towards younger audience, and I feel like if younger audience, like teenagers, were reading this book, this ending might be one that satisfies them. But yeah, 4 stars, ended up really enjoying it. The next book that I read was my favorite book of 2025 so far, and that book is The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. I would give this book a million stars if I could, but sadly Storygraph doesn't have that option, so we're gonna go with 5. But this book was so good. It felt like a hug. It felt like being wrapped in a blanket. It felt like laying down on a grassy field in the middle of flowers. It was just comforting and cute and lovely, and I love cozy fantasy so much overall, and this was probably the best cozy fantasy that I have read so far. Okay, sorry for the sudden change of camera view, but I couldn't sit on top of my legs any longer. If you guys don't know what the spell shop is about, our main character Keela is a librarian in the main cities, or like capital cities, huge magical library. And in the capital city there has been some unrest recently, and when the rebels attack Keela's library, she takes a bunch of books from the library, a bunch of spell books from the library. She takes her sentient snake plant friend Kaz and sails off to save the books and save herself. In the end, Keela and Kaz end up sailing to the small island where Keela grew up, and they take place in Keela's old home. It is a little cottage in the middle of the woods, and obviously since Keela and her family haven't lived there in a while, it is kind of taken back by the nature. Keela also meets a very noisy but kind of cute neighbor, Laren, and to figure out how to keep herself alive in this little island, Keela decides that she's going to start an slightly illegal spell shop in her family's cottage. This book it doesn't have much plot. Like, it has an overarching plot, but the plot is not the main focus of the story, in my opinion. The main focus is the vibes, and the vibes are cozy and lovely, and the characters are so good and trusting and kind, and the romance between Keela and Laren is just made me giggle and made me so happy. And I love this book so much. I cannot express it with words, but this book made me want to run away from my city and buy a little cottage somewhere and start my own garden, and maybe to start growing my own vegetables and doing my own jam. And I cannot start a spell shop, and I do not have a sentient snake plant Kaz, but I love this book so much. I am so bad at conveying it, but please just see my very enthusiastic body language and read this book if you love cozy fantasy. I love this book so much. The third book that I read in March was Wildfire by Hannah Grace. I read Maple Hill series in wrong order, aka I started with Daydream, then I read Icebreaker, and then I read Wildfire. And I think after being caught up with the series, my favorites go: number 1 is Daydream, number 2 is Wildfire, and number 3 is Icebreaker. So basically in the opposite order of publishing order. I just feel like you can really see Hannah Grace's writing improving, and I really like this book. I gave it 4.75 stars, which basically for me means that there was nothing wrong with this book, but I just wasn't hooked, especially after such a good book like Spell Shop. This just didn't hit that same 5-star level. Wildfire is the second book in the Maple Hill series, and our main characters are Russ and Aurora. Russ is part of the ice hockey team that we kind of follow in the Maple Hill story, and Aurora is a girl who he meets when they are both working as camp counselors during the summer. They actually meet before the summer camp. They have a one-night stand at one of the ice hockey team's parties, and then Aurora runs after their one-night stand without giving Russ an explanation of why. Then they meet again at the summer camp, and the summer camp has a strict rule of no fraternizing between summer camp counselors. But are these two maybe bending the rules a little bit. Yes, they absolutely are. I just adore in Hannah Grace's books how well the main couple always communicates with each other. Like, none of the conflicts in the books come from miscommunication or stuff like that. All of the conflicts in her books always come from outside. So, in Aurora's and Russ's case, for example, it's the fraternizing rule. That's kind of the main issue in the book. I love how much respect the main couple always has for each other. I feel like ever since I started reading romance again, maybe like half a year ago, I've seen that more and more, where kind of like disrespecting your partner just isn't seen sexy anymore in like nowadays romance, which is super refreshing, because I at least am not a fan of the kind of like men dominating the woman kind of romance. Hannah Grace also always includes some sort of other issues in her books, issues that the main characters are going through, especially in Wildfire. I just really appreciated how Ross and Aurora are so similar in some cases, but super different in others. For example, they have really similar family issues, but they deal with those issues very differently. Russ especially has some issues with his family, and especially his dad. His dad is an addict, and not to trauma dump on you guys, but that was very relatable for me. So I enjoyed reading about Russ's struggles with his family especially. I kind of made an accidental theme in my March readings where you guys will see soon, but most of the characters in the books that I read were A, had shitty dads, and B, were somehow related to libraries or bookshops or reading. So, in the spell shop, that one didn't have shitty dads. Oh, no, yes, it did. So, in spell shop, there was a shitty dad, and also Kayla was a librarian. In Wildfire, both of the characters had shitty dads, and Aurora is an English major. And this theme continues towards the other books as well. So, in the end, really enjoyed Wildfire. I'm happy to be caught up with the Maple Hill series, and I'm excited to keep reading the series when Hannah Grace decides to publish something new, which I'm so excited for. Please, Hannah Grace, please give us some news. Continuing with the romance theme and the other themes mentioned, I also read The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Laurie Gilmore in March. This is the second book in the Dream Harbor series. I really loved The Pumpkin Spice Cafe when I read it, and this one I really liked as well. I gave this one 4.75 stars as well, with the same reasoning as Wildfire, where nothing wrong with this book, but I wasn't like 1000% obsessed with it. In the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, we follow a main couple, Hazel, who is, I think, the manager of the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, as well as Noah, who is a fisherman and also does like boat tours in Dream Harbor, which is a small town that has a bunch of tourists. So Noah takes those tourists to boat tours, and Hazel and Noah have been friends for a while. They kind of run in the same circles, and Hazel has had a crush on Noah for a while, or not really a crush, but at least like attraction. And also Hazel's friend Annie has sworn for ages that Noah has the hots for Hazel. Like, they put it in the book multiple times. Hazel is about to turn 30 in a few months when she kind of has an identity crisis of feeling like she has lived such a boring life during her 20s. You know, she has just been working and graduating. She hasn't had any wild hookups. She hasn't had any wild adventures. She feels like she has been boring during her 20s, and she feels like she kind of threw away her 20s or wasted away her 20s. And that is when Hazel starts finding these little clues in her bookshop. So she starts finding books that have been put away on the bookshelves wrong, and inside those books there's always a page dog-eared, and then one line has been underlined, and those lines work as kind of clues. And Hazel is kind of suspicious that this is maybe someone trying to give her that adventure that she's craving for, and she ends up telling Noah about these clues, and Noah promises to be Hazel's partner in crime in figuring out these clues, but also Noah decides or promises to be Hazel's adventure guide in having a fun summer before turning 30. And after reading this book, I have figured out that friends with benefits, but both of the people are actually yearning for each other, is now one of my favorite tropes. So maybe from that you can figure out where Hazel's and Noah's fun summer goes to. But I adored this book. I think Noah and Hazel were super fun to read about. I liked the kind of adventure part of the story. I thought it was fun, but mainly I just really loved the couple again. I think Noah and Hazel were so good for each other, so fun. And yeah, I feel like this is one of the books where I don't really have any substantial to say about the plot or the characters or the writing, but it was just a good time, and I enjoy reading lighthearted romances like this. So yeah, 4.75 stars, and I'm definitely gonna continue reading the series, although it does feel a little wrong to read a Christmas book next when it's not Christmas. And yeah, like I said, continues the theme of librarians or book stuff. Hazel is literally a bookshop manager. So once again, continues theme. And Noah does have some family issues. Not necessarily a shitty dad, but just some family issues. So that theme continues as well. The next book I read was Emily Henry's Funny Story. This one I actually read physically, and you can see there's, oh, well, you can kind of see it. There's annotations, so I was like underlining and stuff this book. I was so scared when I went into this book that it wasn't gonna live up to Happy Place, because Happy Place is probably one of my favorite books of all time. And sadly, it did not live up to Happy Place. I gave this book 4 stars, which is, I think, my only 4 stars from Emily Henry. All of the other books, I think, have been 5 stars. Happy Story just holds such an special place in my heart. It was literally like someone, Emily Henry, went into my brain and saw all the parts that are hurt and tender and took those parts out and put them in a book. And that book was Happy Place. So that's a high bar to, win. And I did enjoy Funny Story a lot, but I feel like in this one, the main couple and the romance just didn't do it for me. I think Miles was a cutie and Daphne was super relatable, but maybe due to the pacing, I just wasn't convinced by their relationship with each other and their love for each other. All the other parts of this book I really loved though. Daphne is a children's librarian, which once again was so lovely to read about because I am a children's librarian, and it was super fun to read about Daphne's work and her love for libraries, because that was something I could really relate to. And one funny thing I feel like is that Daphne is kind of planning a readathon in the library she's working at during this book, where the kids could come to the library and stay overnight and just read books. And now I want to do that at my library. I feel like that's such a funny idea. I feel like for me, the highlight of this book was just reading about Daphne's work and reading about the library stuff. But I didn't hate this book. Like I said, it was a 4 stars. I loved everything in this book except the romance. And the romance wasn't bad either. I just feel like it was maybe a little bit rushed, or I wish the story would have taken place during a longer period of time, especially because the kind of like the main couple didn't really know each other at all before the story and the romance starts happening. It did have kind of like going from strangers into friends into lovers though, which I always appreciate. I am a sucker for friends to lovers, and I just always find books super unrealistic if they go straight from strangers to lovers. You know, I feel like there needs to be that friend stage in between. And another highlight for this book, I feel like, is something that Emily Henry does so well in all of her books, and that is side characters. So Ashley and Julia, loved them in this book. Ashley is Daphne's co-worker and Julia is Miles's little sister. And yeah, once again, continuing the theme, Daphne is a librarian in this book, and both Daphne and Miles have shitty dads. So this month was just all about hurting Faye, really, hurting myself with all of the shitty dad representation. Then the last 2 books I read during March are actually graphic novels. The first one is Tea Dragon Tapestry by Katie O'Neill. This is the 3rd Tea Dragon Society or Tea Dragon graphic novel, and it was adorable. It was cute. I feel like I have liked each new volume of the Tea Dragon series more than the previous one, and I already really loved Tea Dragon Society. So, you know, Tea Dragon Festival upping that, and now Tea Dragon Tapestry upping the previous 2 is just a really mighty feat, I feel like. But yeah, I just adore this series. It is also, you know, another series that just makes me feel warm and lovely and comfy. And I love all of our main characters. I love the LGBTQ rap in this book, and the art style is gorgeous. So definitely regretting the fact that I didn't read this series before. I know that it was super hyped in like, I don't know, around like 20 something when it came out. But I am glad that I ended up at least picking it up now. And the last book I read is actually a manga, and it is How I Met My Soulmate by Anna Shin. This is volume number 1, and I am super excited, or I was, even before reading this book, I was super excited for this series, because Anna Shin wrote, I think, my like all-time favorite manga series, I would say, which is Waiting for Spring. So when I found this volume in a convention, I think, I was just super hyped that Anna Shin was writing something new. Honestly, it's just a good classic shoujo series where our main character Yuki is 20 years old, and she is kind of like a shy girl. She hasn't experienced much in college yet, and then she goes to a bar with her friend Sanae, and they meet these guys, where one of them is Yuri, the guy in the cover. And when Yuki meets Yuri for the first time, Yuri is super drunk. He's kind of rude to Yuki, but after that, in a conversation, Yuki tells Iori how she wants to meet her soulmate. And Iori is like, I can help you, I can try to set you up with someone. They kind of start a friendship first, where Iori is just honestly Yuki's wingman. Yuki also has a middle school or high school crush that she has a reunion in this volume, and Iori is kind of acting like a, you know, he's acting a little jealous, which is just super cute. And it's nothing like mind-blowing, but it's just a cute, fun, light-hearted shoujo manga. And that, if you guys haven't figured out already from all of the books I read, is what I just love. I just love a good light-hearted romance, whether it is in a book or in a manga or in a graphic novel. I just want to feel happy and fluffy and kick my feet and giggle, and you know. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna pick up volume number 2 soon. I actually do own it already, so it's right there. And I think it has been translated into English up to volume 3 or volume 4. And in Japanese, there's 5 volumes out right now. So it's fun to also kind of follow the series as it is published, because Waiting for Spring I read in one sitting since it was already fully out when I started reading it. So that was all of the 7 books I read in March. I'm also in middle of a few books, but since I haven't finished them yet and it is already April when I'm filming this, they are probably gonna go to my April wrap up. Right now we're gonna leave it at that. I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you guys in the next video. So bye!